As we stand here on this lawn today, I want us to remember that the challenge that we have in the country today is about freedom. It's about protecting and preserving the freedoms that we hold and share so dearly. And you know, it's interesting, as I also stand here, I think about my grandfather. My grandfather was born and raised in the segregated South here in Texas. And he grew up to become a small entrepreneur. And he sent his 2 kids to college and into graduate school. And he invested in my mom and my uncle and myself and then his grandkids. How sickened he would be today to see the generational theft that's occurring in this country. And you know the numbers. You know that a child born today, the parents will get a birth certificate in one hand and a $30,000 federal deficit bill in the other. You know that this president and his cohorts in Washington are amassing debt that is more than every president, from George Washington to George W. Bush combined. You know that what we have to be about the business of doing in Washington is cutting spending, curtailing earmarks, ending the czars, and discontinuing the slide towards European-style socialism. My friends, you know, so many Americans bought the Kool-Aid. They got to hear the message about hope and change. I know we're here just hoping he changes, but just in case he doesn't, you know, they heard that, you know, the phrase, yes, we can. And now we know that what they really meant was, no, you can't, but the government will do it for you. And there's one place where you see that in real reality, and that's in this debate about health care. As Americans, we want people to be as healthy as possible, for as long as possible, with the lowest possible cost. And we believe the best way to do that is to spur competition and innovation and entrepreneurship. But you know what's happening there. Somebody there is going to want to tell you how to take care of your health needs. All you have to do is stand behind me and see the scar on the back of my head and realize that about 15 years ago I had some health challenges myself. I am healthy today. But I can remember sitting in a room at a table, myself and my wife and my 3 doctors, as we talked about who I wanted to do surgery on me. We talked about the treatment and the therapy that they were going to employ. We talked about when it was going to begin. And we talked about when it was going to stop. And it was my decision. The last thing we want is a federal bureaucrat standing between us and our doctors. My friends, all we got to do if you want to expand health opportunities is make sure this conversation moves from health insurance to health care. And there are 2 models we can use. Think about the health savings account. You right now, the federal government says that an individual can have health savings account of $2,850. Why don't we move that from $2,850 to somewhere around $5,000? Why don't we take the health savings account limit for the family of about $5,000 and move it about $16,000 or more? Let you buy health care and health insurance in pre-tax dollars. In addition to that, why not allow you to go out and buy health insurance from insurance carriers irrespective of whether they're in Texas or not, and encourage competition. In addition to that, why don't we move the experience in Texas all the way to Washington, D.C., and have tort reform as part of the plan as well. And my friends, recognizing they're poor in this country, recognizing the lesson that we learned in 1996 with welfare reform, devolved from the federal government back to us in Texas, the states, the power to take care of our poor. My friends, there's so much more that we can do. And I'm looking at the clock here and they're saying, Michael, it's almost time for you to go. So I just want to do a couple things before we leave. A couple things I want to do is that she was kind enough to mention I'm running for the United States Senate. And I didn't want to make this a Senate No, we're not making this a Senate speech today. This is a Tea Party speech today. But I do think as I go around this state, you are telling me there's something in particular you're looking for. You are telling me that you want somebody who is a consistent and reliable conservative. You're saying you want somebody who has the courage to stand up to Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi. You're saying you want somebody that won't be seduced by the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the K Street lobby. You're saying you want somebody who can rally Americans around the next generation of conservative principles. My friends, I just want you to know that back when I first became a railroad commissioner, we had more than 900 employees. We have less than 700 today because we took to heart your demand for smaller government. My friends, also want you to know that back in 2005, the legislature was kind enough to give the 9 of us in the executive branch a $32,000 pay raise. And in 2007, they gave us another $13,000 per year pay raise, $45,000 per year. That, since 2005, has been about $155,000, and I have never taken a penny. And the reason is, if I am trying to make the case about smaller government, it's a whole lot easier for me to make it when I'm not sticking my hand in the till. But I have to admit that's another reason. Debbie and others, you know I am married to an absolutely gorgeous and enormously talented woman. And even if I had taken a pay raise, I would not be the breadwinner in the Williams family. So, my friends, as we go forward, and as you start looking about how you fit in, as Rick Green said earlier, I encourage you, find one of those issues that you're passionate about. Get engaged. Find one of those organizations that you're passionate about and get engaged. And recognize that you will be working alongside someone who shares your values and is ready to go to work. Back in 1986, I was a 33-year-old prosecutor at the United States Department of Justice. I was the prosecutor in charge of the case, the United States of America versus 5 members of the Carolina Knights of the KKK. I had indicted them for conspiring to obtain stolen military weapons from Fort Bragg and other military installations across the South. In the records of the United States Senate, it will tell you that the Carolina Knights of the KKK was the largest and perhaps the most violent white supremacist organization in the country. Those Senate records would also tell you that I prosecuted those cases at no small risk to myself. You see, people who had done harm before sent a death warrant out against me. As a matter of fact, the last 2 cases I tried under the heavy armed protection of agents of the United States Marshal Service and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And in the end, those 5 individuals got a free, paid trip to a federal institution of higher learning. 4 years later, I was an assistant secretary at the U.S. Department of Education. I had the same position under President George H.W. Bush that Supreme Court Justice Thomas had under Ronald Reagan. And I issued a policy statement that said colleges and universities should discontinue assigning seats in their classrooms and financial aid dollars based upon someone's bloodline. The New York Times said it was a frontal assault on race-based affirmative action, and it was. Why do I tell you that story? I have to think, as you're looking towards the future, that the courage that was displayed by that 33-year-old prosecutor and the fidelity to the principles of individual liberty and individual freedom were in that 33-year-old, in that 37-year-old, are still in me today. And I look forward to working on behalf of you in Washington to carry Texas values to Washington. May the peace of the Lord be with you. May God bless you. May God bless Texas.